Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Wisdom, the Nectar from Senior Devotee. Please accept my humble obeisance. Today we have special guest, His Grace Ghosh Takur Das from Saranagati, Canada. Ghosh Takur Das is directly disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he continued to serve ISKCON and still serving his eco-village in Saranagati. So we are lucky and get opportunity to get touch with him, and he's here. So I am very glad and honored that he's here. So please accept my humble obeisance, Prabhu, for your kind presence here. And I request Sudipeshwari Devi Dasi to read your biography briefly, shortly, because we have not enough time of that. So she is coming for that. So
Hare Krishna.
Dipeshwari can start. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Please accept my humble obeisance to you. And I am very honored and pleasure to read your biography.
Accept mine also.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. And I like to thank Sachipran Gauranga Das for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Sachipran Prabhu. So, His Grace Ghosh Takur Das was born in Quebec City, Canada, February 1951. In 1973, at age of 22, he joined ISKCON Toronto Temple, where His Holiness Bhakti Mar Swami was his Bhakta leader. Ghosh Takur Das became a book distributor. 8 months later, he moved to Montreal Temple and stayed there for 6 years, doing book distribution and collecting money. He got married in 1978 to Srila Prabhupada's disciple Giriraj Dashi and been married at 43 years.
Girijadashi.
He moved to Ottawa Temple for 4 years. He ran a restaurant, did Harinam and book distribution in Ottawa. He also became a Gurukul teacher in the US, New York, Philadelphia, Gitanagari, and Alachua. In 1992, His Grace Ghosh Thakur Das moved to Sharanagati, a village, BC, Canada. He established a cow protection program, and in 1999, he led 2 vegetarian clubs in 2 different universities for 13 years. Simon Fraser's University and University of British Columbia are where he distributed a lot of prasadam from the Vancouver Temple. Presently live in Sharanagati. He raised 5 children and 12 grandchildren. They all live in Sharanagati, except for one daughter who lives in the UK near Bhaktivedanta Manor. Prior to COVID-19, every year he would go to India for 3 to 4 months. He also participated in the Festival of India with Madhua Prabhu for 5 years. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Stay tuned in wisdom. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Dipeshwari Radhika Devidasi, to explain his biography.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gananjana Salakaya, Chakshura Gena, Tajmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master has opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer him our full obeisances. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutari Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesa Sunnavadi Pasachari Satarini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I thank very much everybody that is listening to the broadcast that wants to know more about Prabhupada's glories. I feel it's a great honor for me to be able to speak about Prabhupada. And I hope I offer you some interesting viewpoint, angle of visions about who Prabhupada was. And so generally speaking, people like to hear what it was the personal encounter with the disciple of Prabhupada had with Prabhupada. So I saw Prabhupada a few times, maybe 4 times. One time, the first time I saw him in Dallas, Texas, at the Guru 1975 or something like that. Then he came to Montreal Temple. Then I saw him in Toronto Temple. And finally, I saw him in Mayapur in 1977. So people sometimes they like to have stories related to the encounter with Prabhupada. But I must say that because Prabhupada is a Mahabhagavat and a transcendental personality, the qualification to relate what we saw about Prabhupada is difficult. It's not like it's easy to explain to people what we experienced when we saw Prabhupada. So, because when I saw Prabhupada, I was like a new devotee, full of anarthas, covered up. And to appreciate Prabhupada, it takes time. It takes to appreciate Prabhupada more. We all appreciate Prabhupada, but to appreciate Prabhupada as he is, we must become also self-realized. We must also become advanced spiritually. Otherwise, we see the external personality of Prabhupada. So in order to give you a better understanding of what my experience is with Srila Prabhupada, I have to refer to the scriptures. I have to bring into the focus the description of the scriptures about saintly people, saintly person. So before I do that, though, I can relate a little bit some understanding about the power and the glories of Prabhupada. A few years back, I was in Boston for the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada's arrival in Boston. And in the evening, there was a conference about Prabhupada, and that it was a big famous conference hall in Boston with historical reference. And there was many people there. Some were non-devotees. Some were like historians and university people and politicians also, plus our own devotees. So one historian pointed out that Prabhupada is unique in spiritual leaders in the world. And he explained that when Jesus Christ spread Christianity, he spread it from his own country with his own people around him. And when Muhammad also preached about Islam, he did it in his own country with his own people. But Prabhupada didn't preach Krishna consciousness in his own country or with his own people. He went by himself, crossed the ocean. He had nobody to help him, and the people there were strangers. It was not his own people or his own country. Still, he was able to start an international movement all by himself, and with no help, well, absolutely no help. So this historian was remarking, although he's a non-devotee, that Prabhupada's position is unique. Now, another way we can also understand the unique position of Prabhupada is like Prabhupada had an order from his guru, and the basic understanding is that disciple must fulfill the order of his guru. So Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj told Prabhupada to go to the West and preach Krishna consciousness in the English language. That will benefit you and benefit people who will help you. But Prabhupada surpassed that order. He didn't only preach Krishna consciousness in English. His book were translated in so many different languages, and they spread all over the world. In Russian, Chinese, you name it, everywhere. And so Bhaktisiddhanta was asking him to preach in English, but Prabhupada preached in all language to everyone. Then Bhaktisiddhanta didn't ask Prabhupada to preach in India. He wanted him to go to the West. But Prabhupada came to India, and he flooded India with Krishna consciousness also. So we can understand how powerful this Acharya is and this light. So in order to see Prabhupada as some insight, we have to refer to the scriptures. Because with our own material senses, what can we understand about Prabhupada? Our understanding is very limited. And another point is usually in the spiritual circle, there's three guidelines. The guidelines of the scriptures, the guidelines of the guru, and the guidelines of the sadhus. So then we can maybe have some check and balance. The guru must speak what the Shastra says, and the sadhus, they must also speak what the Shastra says. And the Shastras are the basis. But in the case of Prabhupada, when he came to the West, there was no scriptures. There was no sadhus. It was only him. The people of the West, they didn't know what sastras are or spiritual association is. They didn't know anything. But from Prabhupada, Prabhupada gave us the scriptures, translated the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and he gave it to us. And then he also gave us the association of sadhus. Like we didn't have any sadhus, Krishna conscious sadhus in the West. Prabhupada created the sadhu sangha, and he presented the scriptures. So for a Prabhupada disciple, Prabhupada is not only the guru, he's the sastras and the sadhus, the origin of sastras and sadhus also. This is also another amazing feat produced by Prabhupada. So now I'm gonna read a verse from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Is the instruction of Lord Krishna to Uddhava, which describes the nature of a saintly person. So it's canto 11, chapter text number 44. Swacha parakitita snigdo madhuryas tirtabor nrinam muni punati apam mitram iksho parsparsha kirtanai. Translation: O king, a saintly person is just like water because he is free from all contamination, gentle by nature, and by speaking creates a beautiful vibration like that of a flowing water. Just by seeing, touching, or hearing such a saintly person, the living entity is purified, just as one is cleansed by contact with pure water. Thus, a saintly person, just like a holy place, purifies all those who contact him because he always chants the glories of the Lord. So we can see that this description perfectly fit Srila Prabhupada's nature, that he was speaking the sastras, and his voice was very pure, like water. And simply by seeing, touching, or hearing a person like Prabhupada, one becomes purified. So when I saw Prabhupada also, I remember the second time I saw Prabhupada, he came to Montreal, and I was not feeling very comfortable to see Prabhupada again, because as a neophyte devotee, I have many shortcomings and anarthas, and I was thinking, well, Prabhupada is a pure devotee, so he's going to see all my faults and he's going to see who I am, really, you know, not a very sincere devotee. So I was apprehensive. But when Prabhupada came and I was in the temple room and Prabhupada was sitting on a Vyasa-san, all my fear disappeared because I realized Srila Prabhupada didn't come to criticize anybody. People who Prabhupada preached to were full of faults. They were the most fallen. So he didn't come. I was saying that I didn't feel any threat or any anxieties when Prabhupada was there, because I could see that he was completely transcendental to any kind of judgmental attitude or anything like that. And I felt relieved. I felt relieved. I said, this person is not coming here to criticize us. He's coming here to save us. He's coming to give us his mercy. So therefore, just by being in the presence of Srila Prabhupada, people felt great mental relief, relief from anxieties, and they felt like they wanted to serve Prabhupada immediately. So wherever I went, when Prabhupada was around, the fourth time I saw him, there was always great energy and great activities around Prabhupada. There was always a lot of devotees there and a lot of spiritual enthusiasm generated just by the presence of Prabhupada. So like the Vapu, the personal presence of a pure devotee is very powerful also. We say that Vani, the words of a pure devotee, the instructions, is more powerful than the physical form. But the physical form and the presence of a pure devotee is also very powerful. I have experienced that as well as many other people. So in order to, like, for example, we can say, oh, Prabhupada disciples are fortunate because they're direct disciples of Prabhupada and they get some special mercy. But I know in my heart that a Prabhupada disciple, in one way, maybe they have some advantage, in another way, they don't. It depends on how a person surrenders to the instruction of Srila Prabhupada. And anybody, regardless if they are direct Prabhupada disciples or not, if they have access to Prabhupada's books and read his instruction and follow them, they have exact 100% equal opportunity to make the same advancement. In other words, everybody has the same equal chance to follow Prabhupada's instruction and get purified and go back home, back to Godhead. So we can analyze more of the quality of saintly person, and because in this particular chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, King Yadu traveled around the Earth planet, and he met a sadhu, a saintly person, and he asked that saintly person, you know, how did you attain your self-realization? And the saintly person described that I became self-realized by observing nature, and I found 24 natural grooves in material nature, and he elaborates them, and the different items are spoken about in this chapter. So I'm going to use one item that he spoke about. He said that a saintly person is just like the Earth planet. Then he described that the Earth planet is very much abused. The Earth planet nowadays is very much abused. It's polluted. Sometimes there's drilling for oil, and sometimes there's open sky mining, and they kind of like rape the Earth. And sometimes there's wars on the Earth planet, and blood spills on the Earth, and so on and so forth. There's so much abuse of the Earth. But the Earth doesn't refrain from giving all the necessities of the fallen inhabitants. The people can have food from the Earth. They have shelter. The Earth still gives. Even though the Earth is being abused, the earth still gives freely to everyone, like a very magnanimous soul. So this is the same thing with Prabhupada. Prabhupada had to tolerate so much. He had to tolerate not getting any help from his god brothers. He had to tolerate his own foolish disciples who were all making all kind of blunders and sometimes criticizing him even. He had to tolerate the backlash of the non-devotees in regard to his movement. Like there were deprogrammers who were trying to deprogram the devotees. There was court cases about book distribution. There was like legal fights, so many different abuse Prabhupada had to tolerate. But Prabhupada never stopped in his determination. He always went on every day translating the Srimad Bhagavatam or other books, and he always kept educating his disciples and answering the letters and so on and so forth. But Prabhupada is like the saintly person described in the Bhagavatam. He has the same, he's the book Bhagavat, he's the person Bhagavat. Like the reason why ISKCON works is not just because of the scriptures, because you read the scriptures and you read this statement about saintliness and liberated people, and you turn around and then you have to Prabhupada, who's a perfect example of all that is stated in the Bhagavatam. He's the living proof of the philosophy of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why our movement spread, because it's not just some empty philosophy. The personal representative, the embodiment of the Bhagavatam is right there with us. So that's another part of Prabhupada's glories. Now another verse. A saintly person, just like fire, sometimes appears in a concealed form and at other times reveal himself. For the welfare of the conditioned souls who desire real happiness, a saintly person may accept the worshipable position of spiritual master, and thus, like fire, he burns to ashes all of the past and future sinful reactions of those who worship him by mercifully accepting their offerings. So this describes that a saintly person doesn't have to be a guru. Many saintly persons don't take the role of gurus. They're liberated themselves, and that's good enough. But sometimes a liberated person will take the position of a guru, so that people who worship him will become purified of all sinful reactions by serving him. So that's what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada accepted disciples. He came to the West, like in Kali Yuga. People don't go to saintly persons. They're not interested. But a saintly person goes to them. Saintly person comes forward, even though they're reluctant for spiritual life. The saintly person meets them ahead of the road, and he interferes with their material path, and he blocks the material path, and he tries to deviate them to the spiritual path. So Prabhupada did that. He crossed the ocean at 69 years old, and we all know the story. He just like sacrificed everything, took great risk just to broadcast and help people. But then he gave initiation to people, so that, like it says here, if they serve the guru, they become purified. So that's the idea, that if you serve a Mahabhagavat, you become purified at heart and you make spiritual progress. When you start spiritual life, you have all kinds of difficulties blocking the way. You have anarthas, you attach to sense gratification, even illicit sense gratification. You've been conditioned to so many sinful activities, so on and so forth, and you have misconception about spiritual life. And you have motives, material motives, a hidden motive to serve Krishna. Nothing is pure in the beginning. But if one applies himself to serve the guru in his mission to preach Krishna consciousness, somebody may become a book distributor or a temple president, or even be there even menial, so-called menial tasks, pot washer or sweeping the temple room, or in any way, shape, or form, if we help Srila Prabhupada expand the mission of Krishna consciousness according to our own capacity, we get purified. That's the result. Our anarthas, our deep-rooted anarthas will slacken off, and we'll feel spiritual progress. Actually, we'll feel great relief, because these anarthas, or sinful reaction we have, they're great, dangerous things that we carry with us. They can prolong our material life for thousands of years. They're like a plague, they're like a disease, like cancer. And if we get relief, it's a great, great achievement. It's a great, wonderful achievement to free oneself from some anarthas and then come closer to Krishna. Is actually the greatest wealth, the greatest achievement. And it comes from serving the Guru, serving a pure devotee like Prabhupada. And many Prabhupada disciples and grand disciples, they experience the same thing, that they were maybe sometimes disappointed or discouraged or feeling disempowered by their conditioning. But by being persistent and determined to continue the process of devotional life, they finally got some relief, sometime after a long time. So with spiritual life, like Rupa Goswami says in Padishamrita, we must be enthusiastic and confident of success, and we must be determined. So by Srila Prabhupada taking the role of a guru, accepting that role, he definitely acted like fire and burned sinful reaction of his disciple and whoever else follows in line of the disciplic succession after that. So let's read one more verse. Muni prasana gambiro durvi gayo duratyaya ananta paro I akshobhya stimitoda ivarnava. A saintly sage is happy and pleasing in his external behavior, whereas internally he is most grave and thoughtful. Because his knowledge is immeasurable and unlimited, he is never disturbed, and thus in all respects he is like the tranquil waters of the unfathomable and unsurpassable ocean. So here the qualities of a saintly sage is happy and pleasing in his external behavior. The Prabhupada was like that. People were attracted to Prabhupada because he was happy, a happy person. He was never disturbed. He was always happy, and he was always pleasing in his external behavior. He was always very respectful and welcoming anybody into his darshans and association. And it was a constant thing. He was constantly like that. It's not like one day Prabhupada was in a bad mood or curses everybody. And he was always steady in his natural internal ecstasy of pure devotion to Krishna. And therefore his external behavior was very pleasing. So, and why he was like that is because that was the tip of the iceberg. Inside his heart, he has immeasurable knowledge, unlimited knowledge about Krishna. Acquired to many, I don't know, he came from Vaikuntha or he accumulated all these realization over many lifetimes. I don't know. I don't really know. But he was not a normal person. Inside his heart, he had all these realization, these deep spiritual qualities that we can't see with our eyes. So the manifestation of being happy and pleasing in his external behavior is a consequence of his internal realization, his internal depth of self-realization. So it's not like an ordinary thing. It's not like everybody can get this external pleasing behavior. Most of us were like up and down and like affected by so many external forces and so on and so forth. So like that, Prabhupada was very special. And also ourselves, we cannot bluff. We cannot pretend our spiritual advancement. We can only act the way at the level we are. And spiritual advancement is gained by sincere endeavors. It's not freely given. We must apply Prabhupada's instructions. We must read Prabhupada's books, not just read them. We must study them repeatedly, and we must persist in the hearing process. If we stop hearing the scriptures and the devotees, we'll hear whatever garbage is there on the internet. So spiritual advancement is based on hearing, and whatever doubts we have will be cleared up by the hearing process if we apply ourselves with diligence and determination. Sometimes we think, oh, spiritual life is difficult because you have to be austere and you have to be renounced and you have to study hard and everything is difficult. Maybe it is difficult, but the capacity to do difficult things is part of the soul. The soul can be very austere. The soul can be very diligent and can do extraordinary things. It's just part of our spiritual nature. So we have to kind of like, we have to tap into our spiritual nature. We must bypass our conditioned nature and tap into our spiritual potential that is there for all of us. And the science of devotional service will unravel our spiritual potential. It's not something coming out from outside. It's all there in our heart already. Krishna Prema is the perfection of the soul eternally. And devotion, and the seed of devotional service is also eternal when it's planted in our heart. It will always, even if we are defeated sometime by Maya, temporary, it's a temporary defeat. It will, the Bhaktivedanta Bij has been planted there, and it will sprout out again until we achieve perfection. So we have to learn the science of devotional service. And I'm going to speak a little bit about the topic of the science of devotional service, how we can make rapid progress from the third canto teaching of Kapila Dev. Then after that, I'll leave some time for questions and comments. But there's an important point spoken by Lord Kapila Dev to his mother devotee, how one can quickly make spiritual advancement, and how one can not make any advancement, even despite his chanting and all that. So let's find the place. Okay. Okay. It's the chapter where Lord Kapila talks about the different levels of devotional service, the neophyte level, and the intermediate devotee, and the advanced devotee. So now we're talking about the neophyte devotee, the beginning devotee. He says, I am present in every living entity as the super soul. If someone neglects or disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. One who worships the deity of Godhead in the temples but does not know that the Supreme Lord, as Paramatma, is situated in every living entity's heart must be in ignorance and is compared to one who offer oblation into ashes. One who offers me respect, but is envious of the bodies of others, and is therefore a separatist, never attain peace of mind because of his inimical behavior towards other living entities. My dear mother, even if you worship me with proper rituals and paraphernalia, a person who is ignorant of my presence in all living entities never pleases me by the worship of my deities in the temple. Performing his prescribed duties, one should worship the deities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead until one realizes my presence in his own heart and in the hearts of other living entities as well. So, like here, Lokapila, it presents the problem we all have, which is being envious of other people. So the neophyte devotee, like it's explained here, he worships the deities nicely, but he's not respectful to other devotees, and he doesn't go out of his way to really like be respectful, honor others. It's like he's selfish. He's worshiping Krishna because he has material motive, and he wants to fulfill these motives. What it usually has to do with either money or prestige or whatever. And we're like that. I mean, I'm like that to whatever extent. And it's not pleasing to the Supreme Lord. It's partially pleasing because we worship him, but we have to graduate to another level. That's the teaching of Lokapila. So what is the next level is to actually respect people, respect even the non-devotees, and respect other devotees, appreciate that Krishna is inside other people's heart also, not just like our heart, and open our heart to hearing the devotees and appreciating them, realizing that we're not superior to anybody. We're like part of the pack. We're one of them, and we will benefit by the association. So if one doesn't have that realization, it's not that he should stop deity worship, but he should continue to worship the deities until he gets that realization that everybody carry Krishna in their heart, and we all Krishna's children, and we have to appreciate the other children of Krishna. Then Lokapila also says, as the blazing fire of death, I cause great fear to whoever makes the least discrimination between himself and other living entities because of a differential outlook. So we cannot, here is explained why we are afraid of death. We're afraid of death because we discriminate between ourselves and other people. And we see others different than ourselves. And also we see that the expansions of ourselves, in the name of family members, children, grandchildren, are also part of ourselves, and they're glorious like we are, so on and so forth. So, but other people, they're just so and so, and who cares about them, you know? So if we see less of other people, we'll be afraid of death, because it's an indication of our material bodily concept of life, that we envy other people. That means we're self-absorbed in this body, the pleasures of this body, the tongue, the genitals, whatever. And we're not detached from our bodies. That's why we're afraid of death. So the remedy, the cure for all this is explained by Lokapila in the next verse. Ata mam sarva bhuteshu bhutatmanam kritalayam har hayet dana manabhyam maitra binena chaksusa. Therefore, through charitable gifts and attention, as well as through friendly behavior, and by viewing all to be alike, one should propitiate me, who abides in all creatures as their very self. So, Kapila Dev, Krishna says, if you worship me through other people, if you give charitable gifts to others. You pay attention to others. You have friendly behaviors towards others, and you also try to help people spiritually. It's the best way to worship me. This is Krishna's advice. You want to please me? Do that. Just become friendly to all and give them the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Be charitable, be open-hearted, be broad-minded, and that is the best way and the quickest way you'll make spiritual advancement, by giving others the chance for Krishna consciousness and being nice to them and being charitable in this way. So those are guidelines. We have a long way to go. Personally, it's not like this. I mean, speaking all this philosophy, and it seems like I've realized it, but if I've realized 1%, I'm lucky. It's all work in progress, and it's our duty to hear this philosophy and apply it every day, again and again. And even if we make a little bit of advancement, it's great. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. So I thank you all very much for having listened to me attempting to glorify Prabhupada. It's a good. I felt very happy when I was asked to talk about Prabhupada, because I made so many offenses to Prabhupada and neglected him so much that now I have a chance to make up for it by glorifying him in front of everybody. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Shashipran Gauranga Prabhu, I thank you very much for allowing me to speak about Prabhupada's glories. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your wonderful explanation about Prabhupada, and also talk about very nicely for devotional service and how quickly advanced the devotional service. So Prabhupada is incomparable personality in this world. He is the universal spiritual leader, not only one society. You explained that is the whole society. He came here to help us, the fallen soul. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
And because of Prabhupada, we are here in ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And people have opportunity to serve Krishna by the mercy of pure devotee. And also Prabhupada make a lot of his disciples to preaching his mission, and mission is going on. So I am so glad and happy that you are here to explaining very nicely about Srila Prabhupada mission, and you are doing also preaching in Sharanagati and Canada. So it is very, very wonderful, and a lot of people are benefited from that. Now question and answer. So my first question is asking you the personal. When I first beginning joining ISKCON, what is the main things that you attract you and you join the Hare Krishna movement? What is the very most important things that you attract? Oh, this is the good
for me, it was like, for me, I was like somebody lost in a Sahara desert. And then I saw an oasis. That's how I felt about it. I was like so unhappy in the material world, so distressed. And I joined because I was distressed. And when I saw the devotees, it was like going into an oasis and drinking water. That's just exactly like that. It was like such a relief. And then I was very lonely in the material world. And when I joined ISKCON, all of a sudden I had like hundreds of friends and so many things to do, so many fun things to do. Nice food, nice prasadam, and associating with people like we see right now during COVID. People are dying for social interaction. They're bored at home, and they just like sometimes they say, I don't care if I get COVID, I got to go and see people, I got to go associate. I'm dying by myself. So, so when I joined, I received a wealth of association with so many wonderful people. It was like the best thing that ever happened to me. I was like lonely, and then I was with so many people, and all day from 4 a.m. till 9 p.m. It was full of varieties of activities to be performed in the temple, and it was like an adventure. It was like a thrill. It was like I never thought about going back to the material world after that. There was, of course, difficulty in due course of time. Our narcos comes out, whatever. But at least I had knowledge to deal with them and to fight to increase my Krishna consciousness. So it's the personality of the devotees that attracted me. Each devotee was unique. When I first joined, I said, my God, these people are way out there. It's like each time I was hearing a devotee speak, it was like, my God, what's that? It was like really far out.
Thank you.
One
Thank you so
devotee
much.
after another was more impressive than the other ones. Balakrishna is one of them. Balakrishna.
Okay, yeah.
That lives here.
He's great devotee.
It was one devotee I met that I was very impressed when he gave class when I was new devotee in Toronto. Wow, this guy is incredible. And he's here. He's still here after 45 years, 48 years. He's still around. That you can have old friends,
Thank you. So next question is, when you first joined this Hare Krishna movement, do you have any family problem or issue? If have, how you overcome that time? Because that time who joined can live in the temple, and the family maybe doesn't like, or I don't know how handle these things. Do you have any experience about that?
Any explanation how to transcend the anarthas and all that?
No, just when you join the Hare Krishna movement, so you are living in the temple. So your family part, there is any complaint or why you joined Hare Krishna? It is new things, it's nothing to do with this, that, or because that time they don't know what is this. Many people. So if your family side any problem, or it is easy. Your family.
My parents were happy that I joined Krishna consciousness. Yeah, no. My parents were happy that I joined Krishna consciousness because I was so much of a problem for them.
Okay, so you are very lucky.
Yeah. Prabhupada said that in the West, there's no family in the West. In the hippie days, people were without families. They were roaming. I was not a hippie, but the family ties are not very strong because there's so much ignorance and passion in Western families that the loving affection is very dim. It's not there. So people, they don't care about leaving their family. Whereas like in India, people are a little more about the goodness maybe, and they appreciate family life better. And there's strong family affection. But in the Western world, it's like family affection is like not much. Prabhupada said that. He says,
yes, Prabhupada said many times about that. So next question is village and city. How you distinguish the city living and village living? And what is the disadvantage of city and village, because you live city and village both sides?
city life and village life is not for everyone. Like, you choose which one you want to have. Sometimes it's more advantageous to live in a city if you're not married, if you're brahmachari, or you're sannyasi, whatever you like. But in my circumstances, because ISKCON was a pioneer movement when I joined in 1973, I realized that as a Grihastha with growing responsibilities, it was difficult to live in ISKCON, live in a temple, because there's, after a while, you have economical need, you have a need to educate your children, and social needs. And I realized I had to take care of my family better. Because what I was doing, I was exchanging devotional service for support, financial support. But you can't do that when you're brahmachari. When you become a grihastha, it's not the duty of ISKCON to maintain a grihastha. The grihastha has to maintain himself. So then you have also different responsibilities. You have to find a place where your family will have social need fulfilled, spiritual educational need fulfilled, and material security fulfilled. As a devotee, you have to fulfill all these needs. So I found that by moving to Sharanagati, I built a house here in 1992. And as soon as the house was there, it was a great added security. Now we have land, now we have a house. And there's like devotees, neighbors, and then my wife felt happier, my kids felt happier, because prior to that I moved about 5-6 times with my family from one temple to the next, and it was very unstable wherever I went. But when I moved to Sharanagati, it was more stable. Now the land is all paid for. There's no mortgage in Sharanagati, and I had my house, and then all I needed to do is make my own money and maintain my family. Then my wife, she had social, emotional need that were taken care of by having friends who had the same needs as her. And my kids had devotee kids, friends also. And it was a school, and they were educated spiritually, and there's a temple. And also, personally, I'm not a farmer. It's not my nature to plow. Like to live in a country is not my nature. But I needed to move here to take care of my family. So like I said in my biography, whatever that biography means, sometimes it sounds like bragging when you write your biography. I had in Vancouver, I had a prasadam distribution program for 13 years. So I was mostly living in Vancouver and coming back to Sharanagati during the weekend or during the semester break. But I was able to preach because I was living in Sharanagati, and my financial means is lower than when you have to live in a city, because I somehow I got the money to build a house, I had no mortgage, no payments. I had free rent, and then I just had to care for the food. So I was able to maintain myself by distributing prasadam to the student at university. I was able to some extent distribute prasadam and also distribute books while I was at the vegetarian clubs. So I was able to be happy by participating also directly in Prabhupada's mission in Vancouver, and also participating here in his mission also by establishing a country farm and like that. So recently, somebody from Winnipeg or Saskatoon, Hindu family, Ramesh Prabhu, with his 3 kids and his wife, an Hindu devotee, he moved here. He moved he moved into one house that we have here that was for rent, and his kids are going to school, and he works here. He works in a small village at the train CPR train terminal, and he made the move here. And there's another Hindu family that came here yesterday from, I think, from Calgary. I'm not sure. And he also has 2 kids, and he wants to move here. So it's for people who have different needs and different nature, and sometimes people like to be here, and some people don't like it here. Some people, it's not for them. So, but it's also important to show the public how you can live simply and grow your own food and have more time for spiritual life. Because nowadays we can see, because of COVID, people are they're like freaking out in the city. There's like right now there's like an exodus, like people are exiling themselves from the city. They're like, oh, we don't want to be here, and they're looking for suburb and country style living. So it's a good display of what we could offer the world by having a nice setting, country setting.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, what is the, like, people, if you move to Sharanagati, how they survive economically? Because Sharanagati is individual, not anybody helping or not temple helping. So the individual source of income help to live individually. So what is where the source of income they can survive?
I can tell you what people do for money, one by one.
Okay.
My son is the chairman of the board of director. That's what he does. But he owns a health food store in the small town. He owns a health food store, and one of my daughter works there. And he also works. He has another job somewhere else in town. Then another devotee that lives here, Italian devotee, he's a construction worker. He works in town, and other people works like one of my son-in-law. He is a teacher in a small town next to here. Is a teacher, and another devotee is a teacher also. 2 teachers. Then some people. There's one devotee here who lives here. He has a business online. He makes what they call smudge sticks, which are like a bundle of sage and herb, and he goes online and sells it all across Canada. He makes it here. He goes in the forest and cut different herbs and different scented items, and he goes online and he sells them on. That's how he maintains himself. And there's another devotee who works like Ramesh. He worked at CPR, the train station. There's a big warehouse there where they load trains, and 2 devotees works there. And some devotees are retired and they don't need to work anymore. They have the pension. I'm like that. I also make money here. I cut firewood for people. Last year I sold so much, thousands of dollars of firewood, because people have wood stove, and I have a chainsaw. I go into the forest and I cut firewood. Before that, I was making money selling prashadam. Or sometimes people will travel. One devotee has a cow program, and people give donation to the cow program. And also that same devotee, he also, during Christmas time, he goes into the shopping center and he sells different items for a month to make money. So there's always ways to make money. For a few years when I moved here, I didn't know what to do. So I was setting paraphernalia on the road, like paintings and different things. And then I had my vegetarian lunch program, I was also sometime a few years back when there was a big oil boom in Canada. The oil was up. So devotees became first aid paramedic. They were paramedics, maybe 7 or 8 devotees became paramedic and went into the oil field as a medic or a paramedic. There's so many different things you can do. Right now, there's about 80 devotees that live here, and they all maintain themselves this way or that way.
How about the education system? How long they can study in the Sharanagati? Up to primary, then
The
secondary.
education we give to the children,
Yeah.
it goes to all the way to grade, from first grade to grade 12. Then after that, they can also. There's a university in one of the cities not far from here, and some kids they move to Kamloops, where there's a big university there, and they study at university. One will become a psychologist, another one will be I'm not too sure, but it's 2 devotees who are studying there, graduate from our school. So this goes from grade 1 or even kindergarten all the way to grade 12. Many kids graduated from our school, and one became an electrician, and another one took other education. And they get full education. It's government maintained school.
Okay, good. Nice. So
yeah, so it's accredited by the government. Online courses.
Okay. Can you tell a little bit, because you have successful grihasthas now. You have kids and grandkids. So what is the balance of spiritual and material things? When grihasthashram, we have a lot of things you have to do with your family life and this, that. So how you balance spiritual life and material life in grihasthashram, and what is your advice for grihastha life?
Well, they cannot be. It depends how advanced you are, and you cannot create an imbalance in either way. You cannot neglect your material life for the sake of spiritual life when you're not very advanced spiritually, when you have material desires, and when you're not a liberated soul, so you're going to have material needs. You cannot foolishly neglect your material needs, thinking that I'm sacrificing everything for Krishna. It's not going to work because you're not on that level. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he says you have to work just to maintain the body and soul together in this world. But in the later canto of the Bhagavatam, he says that if a person has no material desires, you should not work at all. But that is if you don't have any material desires. That means if you're liberated. That is an example of that. People are liberated. They don't endeavor economically at all. You just wait until everything's provided by the Lord. But who is like that? We all have material needs. So you must take care of the material side properly, but not excessively to the point where you're going to lose your spiritual side. It goes both ways, right? If you take your material needs and you go excessively, you want excessive material facilities that you don't really need, and you endeavor very hard for too much money, and it disturbs your mind so much that you forget about chanting your rounds or reading the books or associating with devotees. That's the other excess that you must protect yourself from. So basically, if you are entangled by your material need and you must balance it, you must always associate with devotees. You must find a way to associate with devotees, have devotee friends, and you must hear and chant with them. You must have sadhu sangha with them, because it's Ado Shraddha, initial faith, then sadhu sangha, you want to associate with devotees. And when you associate with devotees, you're going to get bhajana kriya. You're going to engage in sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti is going to be there. So if your sadhana bhakti is going down, it's because your sadhu sangha is going down. So somehow or other, you must be connected with devotees, and you must follow. You cannot speculate. You must be philosophical a little bit. You must read Prabhupada's books and try to follow what he says in his books, refraining ourselves from sinful life. That's important. The four regulative principles are important. And if you to be balanced means you remain free from sinful life. Your mind is peaceful enough to protect yourself from sinful temptation that are always around you. And if you can do that, you'll be protected. Even if you're not a great devotee, if you kind of like keep yourself in the mode of goodness, you'll see that you'll feel happy with yourself, and you'll be protected by Krishna. And even if you live with devotees and you chant loud around, if you don't have the four regulative principles established in your heart, it will still be very difficult to maintain the spiritual taste. So somehow we must find a balance, and sometimes these realizations come slowly. They don't come right away. You must sometimes make mistakes, and sometimes you must rectify them. And it's a learning process. It's the advancement is gained by hardcore experience, and sometimes disappointing failures, because you don't know what you're doing wrong until the consequences catches up to you. Then you wake up. Oh my God, what am I getting into? You know, I must reverse the engine and go back to my spiritual shelter. So hopefully Lord Chaitanya will protect us.
Okay, thank you so much. So next question is come from if family member, not husband and wife, one person is Krishna consciousness and other person is not Krishna consciousness. In this case, how can they run together?
Well, personally, I don't have that experience
What are your
because
suggestions?
my wife is a devotee. I got married when I was a devotee. Sometime a non-devotee partner won't mind that the other person is practicing, and sometimes the other person will mind that the other person is practicing. So when they do mind, it's a bad situation, and then sometimes you have to sacrifice it, because if it endangers your spiritual life, then what's the point? But if the person doesn't mind and the person is kind of neutral about it, and he can go about your spiritual practices, then it's okay. But it's preferable to marry. It's preferable to marry somebody the same nature. Even if they're devotees, sometimes marriage will fail because the person is not even the same nature. What to speak of the same religion? It's even more difficult. So anyway, you have to judge by this guideline, the guideline of the scriptures.
Yeah, so that's good. Thank you. And final question, because time is running. And final question: what is your advice to the next younger generation about Krishna consciousness?
The younger generation who are already in Krishna consciousness?
Maybe some, maybe not. Overall.
Okay. Well, one thing is the beginning of spiritual life is called Adau Shraddha. Adau means beginning, Shraddha means faith. So faith means also trust and respect As soon as you respect and trust the devotees, that's when your spiritual life starts. And as soon as you disrespect and distrust the devotees, that's when your spiritual life starts to go down. So we must be careful, because sometimes on the internet there's a lot of bashing and a lot of loose talk about devotees' problems. And we must be careful what we hear, and we must be careful what we repeat. And because the Devotees Association is not a mundane association. So we must always be thoughtful and respectful. Even if some devotee does something wrong, we don't hate the sinner, but we hate the sin. So we cannot condemn devotees, or devotees should never be the object of harsh speech or harsh attitude. So devotional life start with faith, which means trust and love and respect. So we must have that attitude, must be there all the time. Even when it's difficult, because of the faults of others, respect must still be there, and one must deal with a cool head with other people's problem, if there's any, without losing insight the fact that this person has accepted Krishna as is the goal of his life. So like that, we must be respectful, develop respect.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your wonderful answer of every question and nice nectar of devotional service and Srila Prabhupada. So all is wonderful. And I'm happy to listen from this very nectarian talk. And thank you so much. And hopefully we will get new generation and devotee that benefit from that. And thank you everyone and each of everyone for join here in ISKCON. Nectar of devotion, wisdom, the Amrita Katha, the nectar of senior devotee with experiencing Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Gaur Premanande.
Jai.
Jai.
Hari Hari Bol.